Hello and welcome everyone, I am Madals and welcome to some Heart of the Swarm beta action. Today I have got a replay sent to me by the lovely Red Zerg player in this match. Let me introduce him. He does play for Team Western Wolves. Some call him a wizard. The wizard Zerg, indeed he can be when he is on form. It is of course Ziktomini. And now his opponent in the lower left is the blue Terran, who he tells me is EGThorzain, and I'm inclined to believe him because the reason is GM player, and yeah, I'm just trusting Ziktomini because he is a cool guy, and of course everyone should check him out. You should definitely find his Twitter, which if I'm not mistaken is at www.ziktomini. It may be just at Ziktomini. Either way, you'll be able to find it if you follow me because I follow him, so that is fine. In terms of strategy, being Heart of the Swarm, we should see some fairly normal things happening in terms of the Zerg perspective. Should be a 15 hatch into a 16 pull, because early game Zerg is essentially the same as in Wings of Liberty. Meanwhile though, for the Terran player, some interesting things can go on. You can actually choose to get a gas earlier, but it looks like T-Funk, who I will call EGThorzain now just because I am pretty sure it's him, is going to go down for the barracks, so no early gas timings. Can just go for a one rack command center just as you would in Wings of Liberty, but it's what you do with the gas you usually get after that. You still chuck down a factory, but you have a choice of whether you want to get Widow Mines or just go straight up for Hellions as you would pre-expansion. But Widow Mines offer you a lot of control, especially if you put them in key strategic points like here, also outside your opponent's base. You can start chipping away at units as they come out, and they also give you scouting, and generally they're quite frustrating to deal with. But the one thing I'd say is fairly certain is that EGThorzain will be going for the sort of play where it's mech focused, just due to how strong it's got in the beta, especially with Hellbats in late game, gives you a lot more utility. The Thors as well with high impact payload allow you to deal with Broodlords much better than before, and just generally with the Widow Mines in there and without tanks requiring siege mode, mech is super solid, and it was good in Wings of Liberty, so the changes have just made it incredibly viable. But for the moment, EGThorzain just getting down that command center, just happily going about his normal day-to-day business. We should see the 2 gas follow this up shortly. That would be the standard build. The scouting SCV just on its way across at the moment now, going to come up into the main base, going to have a quick little peek around, be like, hey, have you taken any gas yet? And the answer is no, but 2 Zerglings have popped out, and that means this poor SCV is going to get chased away, and is probably going to die eventually, which is always bad times. Now, here comes down the first gas, the second gas immediately after, so timing-wise, this is really fairly straightforward. It's not something that should be confusing anyone. It's not something which should be like, oh my god, what's he doing? Getting 2 gas after a Rax command center opening? Nope, this is just what we would expect from a Terran against Zerg. It's what happens next. Now, in terms of what Ziktomini can do in mid and late game, he actually has some cool options available to him. You can go for the more straight up strategies that we see in Wings of Liberty. Alternatively, Roach Hydra is very strong at the moment, just generally across the board. You can transition that quite comfortably up into Vipers as well, which add a lot of utility into your army. You can start pulling key units back to snipe them off. You can start using Blinding Cloud on the tank lines just to allow you to engage even better. But just as a general rule, Roach Hydra is very strong. Swarm hosts can be good against mech. They're very good at containing mech, but the trouble is a good number of siege tanks are able to deal with the locusts fairly easily. So for that reason, I haven't seen Swarm host used massively yet, but it's something that is viable to do. And again, if you go into Vipers, you can have some interesting things happen there. EGThorzain probably going to go pretty drop heavy, I would imagine. He's getting up just more factory for the moment though, so this is adding some interesting dynamics on what could be going down. But drop heavy play is good. Widow Mine drops into a mineral line, for example, very strong indeed, and something that can catch quite a few Zerg players off guard. But of course, Ziktomini, top quality, so he should be able to handle that sort of thing fairly easily. As we're seeing now, just with the Overlord placement, he's going to have good vision, well prepared for drops, taking his 3rd base as well. Meanwhile, the Armory coming down, that's quite an early Armory timing, getting out the Hellions. And now, getting out a lot of Hellions in the Armory obviously means that Hellbats are going to become available. So I'm not sure if this is some kind of play that's going to revolve around that, or if it's just to get the upgrade started soon. Both are very viable things and very viable options that we could see happening. Ziktomini though, he's getting up all 4 of his gas fairly early on. This one poor Overlord is getting pushed back, but now just 2 Evos, getting up the Roach Warren. It's starting to gear towards what you'd usually see to deal with mech. The lair timing will probably hit fairly soon, I would imagine. You don't want to leave that too late if you're going to get those Hydras out quite soon, because obviously you need the upgrades to deal with those, the upgrades to make the Hydras really effective, so just the range and also the speed upgrades. But here comes down +1 vehicle weapons, the Hellions coming in to harass at the third. Nothing to worry about, the Queen spreading creep really nicely. Another minor change which not a lot of people have noticed, but you can actually put things like creep tumors on a ramp now, and that is actually quite helpful. And the reason it is so huge is actually when you come to spread creep up a ramp, you can put the creep tumor up to there and then you grant vision above, so that is actually a very important change for Zerg players, which makes spreading creep considerably easier across the map. Now what we're seeing is just an awful lot of Hellions come out. No blue flame upgrade yet, but they are getting the +1 vehicle weapons, so Ziktomini does have to start getting some roaches out shortly, just due to the sheer number of Hellions that are coming. Hellbats are now morphing, so that armory is indeed to get those Hellbats out. Of course now Hellions hit a lot harder with that upgrade. They also have more damage. You can see that actually they're doing a pretty good job against this hatchery, and suddenly you're starting to see, oh, Hellion harassment could be a big deal. We have roaches in production, but there is no way Ziktomini can save this hatch, so ThorzaIn clearly going to be happy with that little engagement there. And Ziktomini, they kill buildings as well. Indeed, apparently they can. Of course, Hellbats, for anyone who doesn't know, they deal 18 damage per hit with 30 versus life, so they are very strong. Now we're seeing Ziktomini get up that spire, so due to seeing a lot of Hellion commitment, going for the Mutalisks are a good plan, because one, they've got great health regeneration, so you can harass for an awful lot. They deal good damage, they're still just as mobile, and of course Hellions are no good against them. What we're seeing though, roaches pushing forward, hopefully going to be able to clean up these Hellions. Small gap in the wall there, so if those Queens don't get back in time, which they should now, oh my goodness, that was close. If those Queens hadn't have managed to scuttle their way back, that could have been an issue. But what we're seeing is the Terran player take down that third base very early on, and after taking out Ziktomini's third, that's going to put him on equal bases, actually ahead in bases for a couple of seconds, and as a result, I'd be very happy as a Terran player in this situation. Now, we see more factories coming down, just the upgrades coming along nicely, the +1 weapons already done, +1 armor started, the Spire 3/4 done here for Ziktomini. But in terms of who's ahead, who's behind, it comes down to the worker count, just that it is quite equal. But this third base is obviously going to be very beneficial for a Terran player. Now we're seeing a lot of drones line up here. Only one Hellion to be fair, but a couple of drones do get sniped off. A good number of Queens though are going to be able to push back these Hellions. Needs to defend this third base, and the additional Hellions, or rather Hellbats now, are just comfortably sitting around outside the natural. Of course, without the requirement for siege mode, tanks can just get in a good defensive position a little bit earlier to prevent against that super early aggression. But now we're seeing the problem that ThorzaIn's about to encounter. He may be getting this very, very powerful ground force, but you can see the only thing he has right now that can shoot up are these 4 Marines. That is literally it. 4 Marines to cover 3 bases is not going to go down too well. The engineering bay is nearly finished though, and as a result, he can start building those missile turrets. The scan does not show that there is a spire down. That, of course, is going to be quite frustrating for ThorzaIn, who now is not able to know that it's coming, but is building 1 missile turret anyway. Can these Mutalisks come in and knock it out in time? The answer should almost certainly be yes. Running away from a single Marine, then realizing, hang on, we can do that. Now, the SCV is going to start getting taken down. The missile turret needs to be finished, but so many SCVs could potentially die here. Tanks coming back just to come and watch the action going on, being like, maybe we can deal with something, but now the missile turret is finished. We see missile turrets getting started at the third as well, so that will push them back for the moment. But what's very important is that Ziktomini hasn't overcommitted to these mutas. Instead, he's only got the 4 out, and I think that is a very good choice, because it's caused a reaction from ThorzaIn straight away to start getting more Thors, to get these missile turrets down, but then Ziktomini is just like, hey, guess what, I'm going to switch. I'm going to get my infestation pit, get my baneling nest down, and then I'm going to just completely tech switch you. You won't be prepared to deal with what I could be throwing at you. So, what does this mean? Widowmines coming down now. They obviously help against mutas as well. If you burrow them around and the mutas fly into them and they are all clumped up, damage be done massively, and therefore they're an effective method to deal with it. And also they have added utility that once you do want to push, you can go out. But ThorzaIn He's already got a lot of units, a good number of Hellbats there, a good number of tanks there. The Mutas, though, can just start chipping away at this army, especially before the Thors come out. But here come the Thors, a couple of volleys come up, one Mutalisk does go down now. This central base is about to get taken, floating on down there. The central base for Ziktomini as well is trying to get secured, but there's a scan, sees the majority of the units, and what Ziktomini now needs to do, try and get a pincer movement and just really sandwich his army. Obviously Hellbats are light, so take bonus damage from Banelings, which makes them quite effective, but the tanks are now sieged up. Ziktomini in a tough spot manages to get those Banelings out of there, but this center base almost certain to be forced to cancel now, but Ziktomini does allow it to finish up. He's just buying himself some time. In come the Mutas now, but the Thors are there. The siege line looking very long. The Hellbats spread out nicely to reduce the damage they would take from Banelings, but in comes Ziktomini from all angles. Will he be able to stop this force? With the Roaches coming in, the tanks are of course going to be the big problem for the time being. With the Mutas trying to magic box over, once the Thors are dead, those Mutas can clean up everything else. So as a result, those tanks unsieging are going to have to start running away. Ziktomini will lose that center base though, unfortunately, but he should be able to clean out a good number of these Hellbats with the Roaches and Mutalisks, which will be very beneficial for him. Unfortunately, the tanks do manage to get away. That's obviously good news for EGThorzain, because once you get rid of those tanks, then you're obviously in a very tough spot. So here we go. We have got the Mutas and Roaches coming in for the counterattack. The tanks are sieged up. The Thors are there. The Mutas will turn tail and run away, because you do not want to be running into a big pack of Thors with a big ball of Mutalisks. But we do now see, of course, that the Hive is coming out. No upgrades, no pathogen glands, no enduring locusts either. So just purely getting that infestation bit for the time being in order to get out that Hive. So will we see Ultras? It's a possibility. These Hellions for the moment though, just pushing back the creep, and this is a smart move to make, but unfortunately in come the Roaches. Now upgrade wise, we're sitting here with the 2-1-2 melee ranged attack for Ziktomini compared to 2-1 out for the vehicles for EGThorzain, about to be 2-2. Drilling Claws is also done now as well, which means really those Widow Mines are just able to start burrowing up ever so fast. We've got some just defending this third base, and I'm not quite sure where the other ones are. Let's take a look and try and find them. So we've got, yep, just 2 outside the natural, 2 outside the third. That's really good for dealing with any Zergling run-bys, and I think that's a very clever thing and a very insensible way to deal with that. But oh my goodness, the Banelings, 25 Banelings are morphing. This could be big. We're going to see so many explosions, of course, with the new physics engine. This is going to be ever so exciting to see. But for the moment, the center hatchery is built yet again. He's yet again going to get taken down. But in comes the Zerglings from behind. In comes the Banelings from the front. Are the Banelings going to detonate on the Thors? The answer, yes, they are. But the Roaches are going to come in and clean it up. And now we see the tanks getting pushed back. We see all of this mech force taken out. Ziktomini in what can only be described as an absolutely brilliant engagement will force back the Terran player. The counterattack is always going to be the threat now. Only 4 tanks there. The Mutas moving forward. Need to magic box though, ideally. In come the Roaches. Need to focus down those tanks ASAP. Unfortunately not focusing firing quite well enough for the time being, and that means that EGThorzain will be able to push this force back for the time being. Now, what else have we got? Ziktomini, well, he's managed to keep up this center base, that's important, but he is still on equal bases as his opponent, and his opponent has now got a 5th command center out. But here come in the Speedlings. They're going to get a complete surround on the tanks. The tanks are going to die very quickly now. The Thor goes down as well. This is a tough spot. The Widow Mines are going to help. They will take out an awful lot of Zerglings there. So, of course, this is precisely what you want to be doing with those Widow Mines. It's just allowing you to clean out those forces quickly. Ziktomini, though, is getting out his Ultralisk Cavalry, is getting out Adrenal Glands, as well as the +3 melee and +2 ranged attack for his Zerglings and Roaches. But Thors are in mass production. We also have Vipers coming out. This is exciting times. Are we going to see some good Abducts? Are we going to see some astonishingly good Blinding Clouds? We will wait to see, but to be honest, this starts exciting me once you start seeing Vipers. I think they actually have one of the highest potentials in the game. It's just about using them right. They've got a very high micro threshold, and as a result, I think good players such as Ziktomini are going to be able to utilize them and incorporate them a lot better than less pro players. such as myself. But of course that's great because I get to watch it, and that is always fun to see. Now the Thors are starting to move forward. They're just going to be pushing down that creep. Doesn't want the creep getting too close. We see the extractor getting consumed for the energy. Both of them are on their way down. I believe the most cost-effective way to gain energy from consume is with evolution chambers. So if you are on the beta ladder and you suddenly see Zerg player with like 13, 14 evolution chambers, you know there's Vipers around, even if you haven't seen them. But here is the threat. In come a couple of Hellions, see the Ultras. I don't believe the Vipers were spotted quite yet, but regardless, with Vipers there, you're always going to have to be a little bit careful, because a good blinding cloud on these tanks, especially in a clump like this, could really cause some big problems and allow this Zerg force to move very easily into the main field. So what we've got now is these Hellions just trying to deny creep spread. The Ziktomini doing a good job. We do have more Hellions running around everywhere, but of course with so many Ultras on the field, with the +3 melee and the Ultralisk armor upgrade now just about to complete, they're going to be fairly tough to take down, to be honest with you, even with a good number of tanks. And especially now the Vipers are on the field, this should be good. Where is Ziktomini going to go? Is he going to try and arc around the back? It looks like he may, and he's going to just try and come around the side, but of course the Widow Mines are there, so they should be able to do a nice little bit of damage. And now we see scans going off, just trying to get a good read on the army, hiding part of it through there, but in he goes. Blinding clouds starting to hit. It goes down on the Hellbats, but there comes a couple of good blinding clouds over the siege tanks, negating any damage they might be doing, and just blinding clouds everywhere, preventing so much of this force from engaging. Ziktomini is just absolutely steamrolling, but blinding cloud does wear off after time. The Ultras trying to deal some good damage. The Roaches are managing to pick off most of the Thors, but it seems as though a lot of this force will get cleaned up for both sides. Transfuse is trying to go down. The Ultras desperately trying to get out of there, but one does get taken out. And in terms of the loss tab, well, actually, we see things are slightly in Thorzain's favour. So while that push looked pretty amazing, Ziktomini, he did take some big losses, but he's resupplying very quickly. 5 more Ultras on their way out. Unfortunately, the Vipers got taken out by the Vikings. And now, with these Center Rocks going down, it looks like Ziktomini knows that actually, I killed a lot of those tanks. You're not going to have a stronger position as I can. You cannot resupply as quickly as I can. And therefore, I can just come and kill you. But this great creep spread is really just giving Ziktomini all the position he needs to know that actually, I know where your Hellions are going, I can clean them out, and I can be in a fairly comfortable spot. +3 ranged weapons, and also we see the +3 armor coming down for Zerg. But now here it comes. This is the push that could make or break the game. He's pushing forward. We see Thorzain desperately trying to hold. The Ultras doing so much damage right now. They are absolutely decimating this force. A couple of tanks do still remain, but the Roaches will clean that up. And while most of the Ultras have gone down, nearly all of the Roaches have survived. Ziktomini, a good 40 supply ahead of his opponent. A repair mass going down. A couple of Seeking Missiles heading off on the Queens, and while the Planetary Fortress is getting focused, unfortunately the repair is just too damn good. The Seeking Missile will get one roach, good micro out of Ziktomini there, and the Planetary Fortress will finally go down, and that means that Ziktomini has actually now got himself into quite a comfortable position. He's a base up for the time being, but we'll now just discover this top planetary fortress, at which point he's like, for goodness sake. But that's fine, because Ziktomini's got the lower base, he's got the center base as well. He's getting some infestors out now as well. The only thing really missing is just if you wanted to go to Broodlords. He hasn't started the Greater Spire yet, even though he could have done. In terms of the bank, both players spending all of their money, both players losing a lot of resources as well. But in terms of the work account, Ziktomini at 74 to the 60 of Thorzain. But here comes wave 3 of this push. How much damage is this going to be able to do here? Well, the Ultras are coming in. There's only 2 tanks out right now. And of course, the Ultra Roach Force is able to decimate that very quickly. The center base is being forced to lift. So many SCVs could potentially die here. A couple of infestors are sitting around as well. Some more tanks on their way across. The Banshee, as we can see, are doing some nice damage. And for some reason, my mouse decided to freeze up there, so I couldn't follow this action. This top planetary fortress is now going to get focused. The Mules trying to repair it up, but just with so many Roaches and so many Ultras, good damage being done, and will manage to knock it out, but it did cost Ziktomini those 2 Ultralisks. However, the important thing to note is that 2 bases have now been taken down. Thorzain essentially now just down to this 1 mining base. His natural is mined out, and still the aggression comes. Thorzain does have quite a lot of money in the bank, so he can resupply, but it just takes time. More tanks are just all turtled up at this 3rd base. Ziktomini gonna be forced back for the moment, but he's got more units coming in. He is only 40 supply away from remaxing. He's got some Corruptors to come and regain air superiority, and of course with those Corruptors up, suddenly these floating buildings are not so safe, but a good number of Ravens and Vikings mean the PDDs can negate any damage that the Corruptors could decide to go for, but still the ground force is obviously gonna be what is concerning to ThorZain. We can see that there's 5 Ultras and 15 Roaches. That's up against 5 Hellbats and 9 tanks. So as long as the tanks are in a good sieged up position, it will be fine. But it's just things like this front base are going to spread the units thin, and that in itself could be a problem. Widow Mines are burrowing. We'll get a Roach here probably for free, which is always good news, but that doesn't matter because the Ultras won't take that much damage from Widow Mines. They're trying to do some damage, but an Overseer there as well now will allow a lot of this to get cleaned out. The Banshee getting focused down. We do have the Ravens coming forward. There's the PDD as expected. The Vipers, the Vikings gonna try and knock back these Corruptors, but now Infested Terrans getting knocked down as well. A good little fungal growth, saw the projectile there. That should mean that a couple of Ravens and Banshee get taken out, but all in all, I'd say Ziktomini is still ahead in this matchup. He's now taking his 6th base, so he is definitely getting a lot of bases up. He's a good 22 workers ahead now, and just in terms of the income he's got, it's about 3 times that in terms of minerals and double that in terms of gas. But now a couple of units getting caught by a fungal growth there. That will allow the Ultras to close up the distance. There are a lot of Hellbats though. The tanks are sieged up in a massive siege line. That will be difficult to push through no matter how many units you've got. The more Infested Terrans, eggs are getting spawned. Still though, as we can see, these tanks are just proving too much at the moment for the Zerg and will be forced back. But ThorZain now under 100 supply, down to only 34 SCVs. Even mass muling may not be able to save him. This final mining base, incredibly low on minerals. ThorZain has just got to try and secure this center base, but can he get it in time? The answer is I just don't know, because as we can see, the mass infester usage is coming back in. 20 infestors now on the field. We've got more Corruptors coming out. Still no great Aspire though, so we're not going to be seeing Broodlords, but this bottom 6th base is getting very well defended. Look at the difference in those incomes. I'm actually going to bring up the bar chart just so you can see this. Look at how ahead Ziktomini is right now. That is absolutely crazy, and as a result, he should be able to win this game now. He's at 100 supply above his opponent, but still the concern is always gonna be how many tanks are on the field. And while you've got this many tanks, you're really gonna be able to turtle up for a long period of time. We've got Widow Mines coming out as well just to help do a little bit more damage. And well, here comes the push now. We've got it from every angle. So many Infested Terran eggs are on their way down, surrounding the tanks. We do have Vipers, Vikings and Corruptors going at each other, but just look at the number of Infested Terrans soaking up a lot of damage there, dealing a lot of damage there. All of the tanks are down on this low ground, trying to hold that center base, but unfortunately, as we can see now, Ziktomini does seem to be able to clean up most of it. The Planetary Fortress still somehow able to stay up. The repairs just are oh so strong. A whole ton of burrowing Widow Mines, but as we can see, a couple of Infestors getting sniped off there. Still the damage being dealt, but the repair is just too much for the time being. But in comes an Ultra, gets a little om-nom of his way through those SCVs. The worker count now down to 29 for ThorZain compared to the 71 of Ziktomini. The center base up though, the mass mule cooldown is going. And once you start looking at it from this position, well actually, you're not going to be too worried in terms of what can my Terran opponent do, because he just doesn't have the money to do too much at all. A couple of tanks are still shelling from the high ground. The center base is now under full siege. So many Roaches there. SCVs getting pulled to repair, trying to do everything and anything they can, but I just don't think it's going to be enough at the moment, because as we see, every wave Ziktomini comes in with, he does more and more damage. Every wave, he is able to start picking away. And now with the Planetary Fortress falling, that was the last mining base of ThorZain. The third is pretty much mined out. So as a result, you're just sitting somewhere with what is 2 mineral patches of mineral income. You're pretty much broke. Your gas income is getting very, very low. And meanwhile, the Zerg player is on 6 bases, could happily take this top right 7 as well, should he want to. So hopefully we will see that come down soon. And well, here we go now. We've got the Ultras coming in, and I know I've said that it's going to be the last push repeatedly, but there goes the GG. And we do see Ziktomini is able to take this epic ZvT. So thank you very much to Ziktomini for sending me over this replay. It was thoroughly good. I hope you all enjoyed it as well. Enjoy this showcase of Heart of the Swarm action. Remember, like the video, leave a cool comment, and of course subscribe. I'll see each and every one of you tomorrow for yet another new cast. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.